All right, everybody, welcome in to the Pump Fake. We are coasting into the final week of the season. Playoff pictures are coming together, specifically the NFC, which is, it has all of its teams now. Now it just comes down to seeding after the Washington Commanders defeat the Atlanta Falcons in overtime on Sunday Night Football and lock up a playoff spot for the first time since 2020. And joining me to talk about that is former Washington receiver, host of Believe in Commanders, Anthony Armstrong. It's good to see you again, my friend. How are you?
I am well. I'm flying high. Like this is the most elated I've been. It's like what 50 degrees, 57, 60 degrees in Texas right now. And the Commanders are in the playoffs. So I can't complain at all.
Yeah, and we were just talking right before we went live with this. This is a much different situation than in 2020 when the team wins a division with a losing record. It's just a down year for the NFC East. Taylor Heineke's the quarterback at the time, and they gave the Bucks hell in the playoffs. They put up a great fight, but it never felt like that was a team that really had a chance to make any noise.
Yeah, that was one of those ones where it's like if everything falls in place, like is this going to be some sort of Disney movie story? Yeah, you
Mm-hmm.
could have had that from it, but uh, I did say back at that time, I'm like, look, you take what it is, and it's still a division championship, and then you still get to call yourself a champion. Yeah, it
Right.
was ugly, but somebody has to win it, and you take it that year. But this one feels different. This one obviously is different, and I think out of all these wins, I think there's been like 7 or 8 different ways that this team has found a way to find a victory. And I didn't know they had another one up their sleeves, but overtime win late was one.
Yeah, and so now this is, the first playoff berth that they've had, with a winning record since probably since you were there? Probably
Yeah,
that RG3 year?
shoot, yeah, well that was yeah, somewhere in there. Yeah,
Yeah.
so it's
So
been a
so it's
while,
been a minute. So it's been a
been a
minute
minute.
since they've had something like this. And we talked earlier in the year, amidst all of the chaos and whatnot of, them finding ways to win, the hot start. They have a 3-game losing streak, but they come out of it. And now they're playing for either the 6 or 7 seed, depending on what happens in week 18. Is there a preference for you on who they would play? And obviously, if it's the 7, they'll go to Philadelphia. But would you rather have a different outcome than that at the moment?
If it's the sixth, and who do you get there?
I'm trying to figure that out in my head right now. It won't be anybody it won't be the North. It won't be the Eagles. So it would be the West, probably the Rams.
It would be the six versus the five.
No, it'd be the 6 against the 3.
Okay,
So they would play either the Rams or the Bucks then in
okay,
that case,
all
or
right.
Atlanta if they somehow win the division. So I mean, there's a few different ways it could go.
Okay, all right. Well, shoot. If you had to pick the worst case scenario, worst quote unquote, it would be
Mm,
Philly. But I mean, now you have a rubber match, right? It's
right.
tough to go against somebody 3 times, and each game, each team can say, "Oh, well, we didn't have this and we didn't have that." Well, now everybody could potentially be at full health. So the Philly one, familiarity, that would be a hell of a matchup. But then something about playing against the Bucks. Are you going to get Marshawn Lattimore back with his history with Mike Evans? Like that could be good for TV as well. But I think having familiarity with the potential opponents bodes well for Washington. And I'm with Jaden after the game. He said he's with his team versus anybody. I'm riding with him. So you pick whoever it is. I'm riding with Jaden.
And I think even with the Philadelphia matchup, like each year over the past like handful of years, the Commanders have given the Eagles a tough out. But also, I think that there's going to be a lot of pressure on Philadelphia, like because of the one and done last year and the great season that they've had last year. It all means nothing if they get one and done again, and I think that puts a lot of pressure on Nick Sirianni. Jalen Hurts is also banged up right now, so I don't think that would by any means be just a pencil in a win for the Eagles at that point.
No, you don't, but they still have Saquon Barkley. And
Sure.
and whatever Washington mixed up and cooked up to just shut him down in that second half, if you find a way to do that again, you got Joe Witt's gonna have to find another recipe, right? So he still has Saquon Barkley. That's gonna give you an opportunity always. But yeah, the pressure over there, because there's already gonna be some internal drama that's
Right.
probably stirring over there in that cheese steak and man. I'll say this: it's good to talk about Washington and not have to talk about drama.
Right.
I think that's what's so refreshing about it.
See that Ron Rivera is getting a head coaching interview with the Jets. Does that make you feel
No,
any sort of way?
I mean, I'm all for the man getting the job because my thing with Ron is that he no coach has ever been through what he went through just to hold a
Sure.
whole head coaching job. Like he had federal investigations, he himself had health issues, lost his mom. Like there's so many things that were going on. Player getting shot, and then and you have to go and play and with the COVID years too. So
Right.
with that right there, I think you have to look back and say, okay, he's had more experience over this tenure. He's got 10 years of experience out of this 5 years of time. He deserves another, shot. Now, maybe they make some other decisions when it comes to the personnel side of things. But he's shown that he can motivate men. He can be a leader of men. And I think that he deserves a shot.
Well, let's focus on last night's game because things start off hot. Washington takes an early lead. By the way, what the hell is in the water with Olamide Zaccheaus having like the month of his career where did he have a touchdown before last week and now he's got 4 of the last 2 games? Like what's going on with this ball distribution to all these receivers stepping up?
Man, he just saved his best for late in the season. Plus, he had some favorable matchups with it. He's
Right.
playing against his old team. Shoot, I'm gonna be hype against my old squad too. But man, I think it speaks to the versatility of this offense. I mean, it's also a big question mark, like who gets it done outside of Terry. But
Right.
man, Z stepped up. Now that one drop late. Now I was about to jump through the TV. I was a little upset, but everything worked out in the end. But now he's been balling as of late.
Yeah, and Zach Ertz stepping up, obviously getting the touchdown, but he also had a big catch and run late in the game as well. But defensively too, man, like we talked about it in the beginning of the year, where it's like, all right, the defense is still finding its way. But after I'd say like the first 6 or 7 weeks, it seems that they've kind of found their way in multiple different aspects. Mike Samuels has been a really good pick in the secondary. Bobby Wagner's still shown the ability to make plays. No, Igbenogany almost had a pick last night. So they found a bunch of different dudes that they've plugged in, whether it be draft picks or free agent signings that they've all brought together. Frankie Louisville also just having a tremendous all-pro caliber year.
Absolutely.
What does that say about Dan Quinn, not just as a head coach, but as a defensive mind for what he's been able to do with this unit?
Man, I think the beautiful thing about it is that Dan is probably not as hands-on as we think. I think he's in the perfect spot to oversee the entire team and once again lead men and motivate people and let his coaches and his lieutenants go and do their thing. There's a lot of trusted people. There's no young OC that he has to kind of keep his eyes on and take that focus away. He didn't have that. He's got Cliff Kingsbury and they got Anthony Lynn. That offensive side is stacked. Same thing with the defense. I think you're seeing, I know he probably has some input, but I bet you're seeing a lot more of Joe Witt influenced things. He started the season talking about he wants 16 to 17 guys who are going to go out there and get after the quarterback. It's not just going to be 11 and you roll them out there. It's multiple people and you're seeing, a lot of depth and versatility. And there's still some holes, there's still some holes and some areas to improve, but the way that they've shown up these last 2 games in the second half, I mean, lights out. And whatever they did, I tweeted somebody broke a table at halftime. And because the way that defense was flying around, you couldn't tell me somebody didn't walk in there and the first thing they did is knock over some Gatorade. Like, y'all think, I don't know what y'all were thinking, but this ain't it. And then they woke up that second half.
Yeah, I mean, you brought up the depth. I mean, Dante Fowler's had a career year this season in his role. So we're seeing a lot of different guys kind of emerge as big time players for them. In terms of the playoffs, though, I mean, yeah, we talked about the matchups outside of Philly. We're seeing everything going on in the NFC North where, coming into the year, I think that many would have said, all right, the 7 seed will, maybe be a 9-10 win team. We're looking at a possibility where we could have a 12-win 7 seed in the NFC. I mean, I think that we might have undervalued the NFC a little bit.
Man, every few years things kind of swing the other way. I mean, I was thinking about last year how the Bengals in the AFC North, everybody had a winning record, but if somebody fell short, and it's just one of those ones this year where the NFC has everybody on a good hot streak. So we'll see who can maintain that, that longevity over the next couple of seasons.
What do you think about Sam Darnold and the Vikings right now? I think that we've been kind of waiting for the bottom to fall out on that and Sam Darnold to revert back to being like the Sam Darnold we've known, whether it be in New York or Carolina. But he hasn't, and he's had a tremendous year in leading the Vikings. What do you make of Minnesota right now? And should their paths cross, what would a matchup between the Commanders and Minnesota look like?
Man, that looks like a chess match to me, because to me it comes down to the play callers. Wes Phillips is up there calling plays in Minnesota, and he had things dialed up, and he does probably one of the best jobs of getting Justin Jefferson open and just getting him easy catches, and then he's able to go make plays after that. And so everybody says, "Oh, Sam Darnold has JJ and all that." He does, but having the play caller, draft new things and give fresh looks, and him then Sam being able to go out there and execute them, that's a really good marriage. And they're balling right now. So what Joe Witt is able to do and how is he going to be able to be creative? Having Marshawn Lattimore is going to be key in that matchup, because you got Jordan Addison on the other side.
Yeah.
You've got Hawkinson over there as well. So, and then Aaron Jones. So it's like, it's hard to say, well, which one do you want to take? Because 18 is going to get a lot of passes. But I think the difference is this team, Washington specifically, I mentioned it earlier, they've won so many ways. I was looking back at my old podcast. I'm looking for the episode just about training camp, about how Dan Quinn started training camp with red zone and situational stuff. And they're like, this is a little bit different, dynamic. But I'm like, I kind of like it, because you don't want to run your guys too early and pull hamstrings in training camp. Let's start with some short zone stuff, red zone stuff, work these situations now. Now we get more reps together at it. And that's sort of showing up later on this season. So what team's been through most, who's been through more adversity, that's what's going to push these teams through the playoffs.
Yeah, we've seen that really pay off of these last 2 weeks with the JMO touchdown against Philly, and then obviously Zach Ertz against Atlanta. Just your overall thoughts going into the playoffs before we get you out of here. How far can this team go, and is there a ceiling in terms of maybe this being a Cinderella story and them making it all the way?
Man, coming into the season, it was like best case win the division, worst case find your way into the playoffs, and then from there it's all even. Everything is 0-0. You just go look at the matchup. So to me, you've got a chance to go and make a run. I mean, honestly, there's you don't look in there and say like, oh man, they're going to get blown out by this team or that team. And there are some pretty intriguing matchups that I would love to see show up down the line. Maybe some places where you got notified when you're mid-flight for a meeting, and then all of a sudden they're like, nah, turn around. I would love to see that matchup happen, but that's probably a championship game. But hey, I still feel like this team has enough gusto, and they got the right veterans. And I just tweeted, every veteran has had their moment this season. Bobby Wagner, after those 3-game losses, B-Wags had a speech like, hey, we got to get right. And he got this team back going. Zach Ertz has showed up for this team where they needed. Mariota at the end of the game in overtime, when Jaden had just gotten knocked in the ribs, Mariota was patting him on the back, hey, man, you got to get up. All right, wrong optics. And he helped him get refocused for that play. So they're strategically placed. This team is special. They can go as far as they want to go.
And it's also a team that, wasn't expected to do any of this. And to find them where they are now, I mean, on the cusp of a potential, 12-win season, that's incredible. Yeah. Do you think Dan Quinn's the coach of the year?
Absolutely. I mean, I would say that, they can't think of anybody else. I think Sean Payton is a guy that you got to put in consideration. I've been tough on him and, critical of him, how he kind of handles stuff, but that's how he coaches. He's a hard ass type of guy, and it probably works perfectly for Bo Nix. He's getting results out of that guy, but I do think it has to go to Dan Quinn. From Jaden, rookie quarterback, we know what everything is. It's got to be Dan Quinn. There's got to be what all the executive of the year, just give all those things, send them up there to Ashburn, Virginia, because it's truly been a master class. Like you could sit back and say, how do you turn, if you Google, how do you turn around a troubled organization? Look at the 2023-2024 Washington Commanders.
Yeah, we got to give Adam Peters a lot of credit too for the Russia that he's built. They still have all the potential in the world to add to that, because they have a lot of money going into this offseason, and that's the benefit of having a great quarterback on a rookie contract, which is what every front office seems to be chasing right now, and the Commanders certainly have it. Is there somebody that you think that they'll add, or that they'll at least pursue?
Man, it's a big name. Coming out of this game, and just over the past couple of weeks, I think now you have to move running back a little bit higher up the list. And so we'll see where that kid from Boise State falls. He's going to be somebody to be interesting. Is he going to fall to the as deep into the playoffs as wherever the Commanders fall, that 20-something pick? I don't think so, but Adam Peters has draft capital, and he's shown the propensity to make some moves, to go make some additions. So that's a new addition to me that I'd put on my draft board. Is paying attention to running back, but those same two spots coming into the season: O-line, corner. What else you can do back there, and then wide receiver too. But that may be a free agency acquisition.
We shall see. What do you got coming on Believe in Commanders this week?
Man, I was actually about to go and look at that last drive or last couple of drives and just talk through what Jaden was doing and just how I see it, because when I did it last night, I was my heart rate was at 115 or so high. Now I've mellowed out, and I can go and be a little bit more analytical about it. So I'm gonna chop it up there and hit another couple episodes probably with Brian later on in the week.
Anthony Armstrong. Hey, but always appreciate you coming on. Everybody tune in to Believe in Commanders. Give that a follow. It's on this very network, Believe Podcast. So once you're done listening to this, go head over there and listen to that. Appreciate you, bro.
Appreciate it, man. Y'all be good.